Okay, for my quote today, which I finally am getting to, it won't be Shakespeare, but I'm going to quote from my late friend, may he rest in peace, Gene Shoemaker. Boy, I still miss him. He died in 1997, just 3 years after the impact of our comet. And what he wanted to do early in his life was to go to the moon. But this is what he said: "No, I'm not going to make it to the moon. Just at the critical time when I should have been standing at the head of the line to go to the moon, my adrenal cortex stopped functioning. And I knew that that would knock me out of the running medically. When you had that idea in your head for 15 years, it doesn't go away. I was immensely pleased and proud of Jack Schmidt, but of course I was wistful too. I couldn't help feeling that there, but for that failed adrenal gland, go I. For a long time after, I used to have dreams. I thought I got there, got to the moon, was there doing geology." And his last words are, "I had to go do other things." Thank you. Thanks, Marty.
Thank you. Thank you. So it sort of reminds me a little bit of Robert Frost.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, One of those, how that whole piece comes together. But anyway, let's get back to Torah study. So I just want to read the rabbi, as I mentioned before, the rabbi is in California, is headed out to California today. Anyway, our blessing in English: "Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. You have sanctified us through your commandments and commanded us to busy ourselves in things of Torah." Amen.
Amen.
Right. I think we left off at Genesis 42, verse 1. Am I right with that? We had already
I think that's about right.
and I just wanted to mention, Wendy asked me a barrage of questions a couple of weeks ago. And I want to mention that the Egyptians, when you go online to look up data about biblical passages and when they occur, you get a lot of information that doesn't overlap, and depending on what you read. But Akhenaten was a pharaoh. His name was also Amenhotep, and he believed in monotheism. His wife turned out to be Nefertiti.
Mm.
They had Tutankhamun. There was a lot of subterfuge, should I say, in the Egyptian monarchy and the elite, and a lot of them never saw an end of life that was natural death. There was a lot of poisoning and so forth. And I wanted to mention some of that. We're also going to, there is another city in Egypt called, I'm not sure if it would be On or On. They also practiced, it became known among the Greeks as Heliopolis, because they worshiped the sun. okay, which was also the sun god of Egypt. And so I just wanted to try to mention this in context of with which we're dealing. Yet, I have to be very honest, the dates don't exactly line up depending on who you read. And so what we know with archaeology and carbon dating and what is biblical, we do not get everything to match up exactly. So all I can say is it becomes interesting. And Wendy had asked some questions, which we will address when we get into the book of Exodus. Okay. And so I just wanted to mention a few things, but all of this is a result of what Wendy had to say. Well, now Pharaoh has appointed Joseph as if you will, I'm going to say like in more recent history, the Grand Vizier, who will have everyone on the list. Joseph is now being appointed as the Grand Vizier, if you will, of Egypt. And the story is now going to shift over to Joseph's family. And so if somebody would like to read Genesis 42, verse 1. Oh, yes, Pastor Bruce.
I would be happy to read because I have another memorial service that I'm helping to conduct at 11. That's why I'm all dressed up and ready to go.
Okay,
last week it was right smack dab in the middle. The week before I could come in on the end. We've had different times for these things every weekend. And so
that happens. So why
I would be happy to read verse 1.
Please, please.
When Yaakov saw that there were food rations to be had in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you keep looking at one another?" You want me to go on, or is that just enough?
Well, why did you want to stop there?
Well, it's funny. I think it's funny. I mean, it's like everybody's sitting around wondering what to do. What are we going to do? I mean, I kind of have a family meeting picture here personally, but I mean, Jacob is now saying, okay, well, I guess I'm going to be the dad again. I guess I have to take some responsibility here to get people going. That's the way I look at it. So he asks a question, but it's a funny, I look at it as being funny because it's like, when there's something that's, well, the stupid pandemic, for instance, everybody's sitting around looking at each other. Oh, what are we going to do? Tired of watching TV, tired of doing this, tired of doing that. Just, oh, there's a famine. What are we going to do?
Well, this is one of the things that you hit the nail on the head, because I don't take it as being as funny as, I would say, what are you all moping about?
Yeah.
Get up and do something.
Absolutely. I mean,
I think that is one of the messages that about Jacob. He's coming out. He's starting to reassert his what should I say? His authority. His comes out as a sense of responsibility.
Absolutely.
And he has been out of the picture for a long time. He's been excessively bemoaning the fact that his son, he believed the story that was told. He allowed himself to be deceived into believing that his son had been killed. Jacob feels this way. But we know from reading on that Joseph is still alive and kicking, and he is also changing his life around. So what is, we have to think about the family dynamics. What happens in times of famine? What happens in times of pandemic?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think that you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, I mean, when you keep just sitting around hoping something's going to happen, what happens? I posted something on my Facebook page this week that I think fits this very thing. Your life does not get better by chance, it gets better by change. Repeat after me. My current situation is not my permanent destination.
Good point. Good, solid point.
They have to be starting to think we got to do something here.
Yes. Yes. Okay, Larry, and then Michael.
There is a question, how can he see what's happening in Egypt? Rashi said it's a vision, and that changes it.
Good point. Good point. Okay, Michael, and then Grace.
Well, yes, what happens and what set in is panic, set in with these things. And I think Jacob took the lead and tried to do something about keeping the people from panicking.
Yes, I think so too. Well, we'll find as we read on. I think what you said is very, very important. Yes, Grace. Grace, I think you're muted.
I'm no longer muted.
Okay.
I'm a little interested in the fact that we seem to be going through the same. Are we going to redo it? Because I have written down some notes where I was 42:18, verse 21 was where we ended last week. I'm fine with going back over it because I always learn new things, like Pastor Bruce's interpretation of he's becoming more responsible and, Jacob. And so I was just wondering, somebody else said they had the same.
I had asked that. I'm not sure, but I just, it's all right to go over things that we're not in any hurry getting through. And I think that I just don't know for sure. That's why I had asked at the beginning. And if anyone else remembers where we left off specifically, that would be fine.
I thought we were talking about when he was calling them, when Joseph was calling his brothers spies.
Oh, okay.
Didn't we go
Okay,
over
we
that last
can
week?
fast forward. We can do that. We can do that.
So that is verse 18 then.
So
I
we
guess.
start on verse 18. I apologize, everyone. Yeah, yes, Don.
Just a quick question. Yeah, I think it was verse 18 last week, but
Okay.
in that very first, in verse 1, Jacob is, he's sending his sons down, but the most they can carry back is how many sacks his sons can carry. So it's what's going on with the rest of the community. He's not exactly a model of civic leadership there. So
He didn't have a big Dodge Caravan to pull things back with.
He had a Ford 150, I think. But yeah, so that I was surprised that there, it was so, everyone for themselves situation.
Well, we can always raise the question how many sacks each one could carry, how many, the size of the sacks. We really
animals involved.
That's right. So, it's one of those things that it's a reasonable question, but the point is that they're going to bring it, they're supposed to bring it back, you know, so that everybody can be fed. So who knows how much grain there was in each sack and how much bread there would be, and then you have to wonder about, to expand on what you just said, what about all the animals? What about all those sheep? They had huge herds of sheep, huge flocks of sheep. So I really don't know the answer to your question. It's sort of overlooked. So anyway, why don't we any other comments about this? So we'll start with verse 18.
Do you want me to go ahead and read that one then?
Yeah, go ahead. That's
Okay.
fine.
On the third day, Joseph said to them, "Do this and you shall live, for I am a God-fearing man." That's interesting enough to talk about maybe too. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah.
Do you want me to keep going?
Please, because not keep going, but a comment on that phrase.
This would not be something an Egyptian would say, and I think it's very interesting that he said it here. I just think that's not, at this particular point, is not a Egyptian thing. It's definitely a Hebrew thing, and I think that it most likely startled and puzzled his brothers just a little bit at this point, just because I think that that's not something that would normally, a decent person says God-fearing, moral, you know, a more moral kind of person type thing. That's kind of a phrase that's used right now, but I think it's interesting that he just used it right here, and I'm sure the brothers were a little taken back.
It's a good point. It's a very good point. It's another one of these situations where we can talk a little about Jacob's reawakening, and also we have Joseph's comment. Maybe it's an attempt to reawaken his brothers, because I think, as we know, his words are very well chosen. He would make a good diplomat. So why don't we read on, unless there are other comments? Okay, so let's go to verse 19.
You want me to read again?
Go ahead.
This will be my last time. I'm getting signals that I may have to go do something. So we'll see.
Oh, okay. Well, you win.
No, I don't have to go yet. It's just I'm supposed to start at 11, but we'll see what's happening in there. If you are honest men, let one of you brothers be held in your place of detention while the rest of you go and take home rations for your starving households.
Any comments about this? What is going on here?
Is Joseph softening his stance a shade at this point?
Yes. The second half of this verse implies that. What about the first half of that verse?
If.
So this is another test. This is another test for the brothers to see if they truly are honest about what they have been saying. Are they really changing their mind about, or are they in the process of changing their minds about what's going on? Because I'm sure in the back of their minds, they have to be saying to themselves, how does he know about our God? How does he know about us? Okay. Why is he concerned? It seems
Our
that he's
house,
showing some compassion for our family.
our families, right?
So what else could be going on here? You have to think about the roles of the different people. Often when we read a book, we just read right through. But if we were to analyze each paragraph in a novel, we would have to ask these same questions about the character. And the novel is tested
Call
in
you back
their own mind.
I can't talk for another 20 minutes. Bye-bye, hon.
So any other ideas? Yes, Sue.
Well, we have to remember that in Joseph's previous experience, he has no reason to trust them yet. He has to, and hence the test. But he still obviously has a tug toward his family and making sure that his family gets some food, some supplies. In other words, he's showing that despite the fact that the brothers will have to prove themselves a bit, he feels somewhat duty bound to make sure that they're fed during this time. So I don't think it's incongruous at all. I think it's a very human way of reacting to having been betrayed in your earlier life. Makes sense to me. Pastor Bruce.
Yes, Pastor Bruce.
Just one more thing, because I'm looking backwards again, because I wasn't in the study last week because of the timing of the memorial, but I'm looking back at this and I'm thinking, originally he was going to have 9 brothers in prison and send one back, right? Is that right?
Yes.
No,
And now he's changing his mind, but you kind of wonder if he wasn't thinking about his father, and that his father might just be totally heartbroken enough to just keel over and die if only one returns versus 9, even though he's going to be, don't want to look too far ahead here, but even though he might be a little upset about one being remaining and the specific one, but we're getting there in a minute. But maybe Joseph's just thinking about his dad.
it could be.
Maybe he's thinking, gosh, what if I take all these people and only send one back? Will he be so bad off that he'll die before I even get a chance to see him again or something? I don't know. I'm trying to think through the emotions of the him through this whole thing. You can try to put yourself in his shoes, sandals, whatever he's got on. Anyway,
interesting points.
Yeah, just I try to think like the person we're talking about. So that's, yeah.
Agree. Suzanne, yes, and then Joanne.
Well, in the beginning of this sentence, he clearly is throwing down a challenge to them, and then the other thing is, if he originally was saying about keeping most of them there and sending one back, that really is not safe, especially in those times of famine, because the one person traveling alone would certainly be vulnerable to an attack by bandits, or I don't know what they call thieves back in those days, but and then the family would not get the food. So so Joseph had to rethink a little bit about what he was saying and let most of them go back and just keep the one brother.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Okay. Well, yes, Joanne.
I keep thinking and wondering if Joseph is trying to discover whether or not his brothers have thought about what they did to him, and if that has made the clan closer. If how worried are they that another brother will be taken from them, and and I just wonder if they've grown any.
We're about to find out and answer your question. Any other comments or questions? Okay, if we read on. David, would you like to read?
Yes.
Because I know
I
Pastor
would.
Bruce will have to go momentarily.
Okay, we are here. Okay.
I think-
If ye, I'm going to start with 19.
Okay,
If ye be upright men, let one of your brethren be bound in your prison house. But go ye carry corn for the famine of your houses, and bring your youngest brother unto me, so shall your words be verified, and ye shall not die. And they did so. And they said one unto the other.
excuse me, any comments at this point? Okay, David.
And they said one unto the other, we are verily guilty concerning our brother. Sorry. In that we saw the distress of his soul, where he besought us, and we would not hear. Therefore is this distress come upon us. And Reuben answered them, saying, I'm going to be living with the Levi soon. No, Reuben answered them, saying, we have a border right now with that name, saying, spoke I not unto you, saying, do not sin against the child, and ye would not hear. Therefore also, behold, his blood is required.
Would you want to stop here? What, any comments that that anyone may have after
Seems to
reading?
be a good stopping place.
Okay, what is Reuben saying? Can somebody paraphrase that? And your impression of Reuben?
Well, he's kind of asking him, did I not say this before? Do not sin against the child, and ye would not hear. So I think he's asking if they're certain about what they said.
Is he really concerned about all of his brothers?
Yes.
Why doesn't he use the word we?
Because he had a different opinion. than
Go
me.
ahead, go ahead.
Because he had a different opinion than his brothers early on, and they didn't listen to him.
So he's trying to separate himself from the rest of the behavior of the rest of his family.
That's a very good point there that
It's
you
the
both
off-
made.
It's the oft-quoted line, which is, I told you so.
Yes, that's the point.
Right.
That's right.
That's right.
So when would have been a good time for him to have taken action?
Are you talking
then.
about,
Maybe way back before Joseph wound up in the pit. Yes. Yeah.
Except that you have to remember there were how many children, and he's one out of how many. That's, the odds aren't very good. He really would need an ally, I think, in order to really make a difference.
Yes.
Good point.
I agree with you. It's a very important way of looking at it. But suppose he were a little more insistent. He's the firstborn. He's the one who, by rights, is going to become their leader.
Yeah.
After Jacob passes on. So is this a good sign of leadership? Or should he? Yes, Chris.
I think right now Joseph is pretty tore up over the situation. He is trying to do the right thing. At the same time, his heart is totally consumed with love and grief at the same time. So I'm not sure that he is really doing 100% all that he really wants to do. I think it's just really torn.
Okay.
That's him. We're talking about Reuben.
Yes, Reuben. Yes.
No, that's him.
Is that? Are you talking about Joseph?
No, I'm talking about both of them.
Both of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
both of them, because one as a leader, I think
Joseph is trying to make the decisions that they will be the right thing, but at the same time, I feel he's torn in his heart about making those decisions because he's going to be asking for Benjamin to come in. And that's going to hurt a lot of people.
Okay. Grace was also going to say something.
Hi, everybody. I'm thinking one of the words that was spoken earlier really jumps out at me. The word diplomat or diplomatically, because he's got a lot going on there. You know, he's making these decisions for Pharaoh and the other leadership there in Egypt. And he's also trying to take care of his family, the clan. And so that's very strategic of him in a lot of ways. That's my thoughts. So being diplomatic.
Good point. Good point. Any other comments? Well, David, if you would read on.
Yes, thank you. And Reuben answered them, and he said, spoke I, not unto you, saying, do not sin against the child. And ye would not hear. Therefore also, behold, his blood is required. And they knew not that Joseph understood them, for the interpreter was between them. And he turned himself about from them and wept. And he returned to them and spoke to them, and took Simeon from among them, and found him before their eyes. Then Joseph commanded to fill their vessels with corn, and to restore every man's money unto his sack, and to give them provision for the way. And thus was it done unto him. And they landed their asses with their corn, and departed thence. And as one of them opened, and departed
Let's stop.
with thence.
Let's stop there. Any comments at this point? So we now, yes, David.
Yeah, actually, it's Wendy is coming.
Oh, okay.
Here you go, sweetie.
This, I'm not going to say is a question about Joseph making the decision, but did it make a difference that now this family of all these brothers is Jewish and not Egyptian? Or are they doling out to everybody around the area? That's
yeah. Good question. And it's perhaps left deliberately vague on that.
Yes, I would agree. So it because specifically the family would be coming there. I'm sure there are other characters or other people in living there. They also are probably trying to get the grain that's stored. Everybody's probably competing for the same grain that Egypt has stored and is willing to sell to them. Because the Hebrews at that time were not specifically the only group that would be involved in this widespread famine. So yeah, it's vague, but I think we could extrapolate, that we're talking about one group of people that here, as opposed to everyone in the Middle East area. Any other comments or questions? Helene, yes.
All I'm thinking about is the quote from the very beginning that he is Hebrew. He believes in God. Wasn't that what was that quote?
Yes. Let me.
God-fearing man.
God-fearing man.
That's right.
Yes.
And
or I fear God.
Yeah. That quote would be the statement from a leader that would permeate, I think, everyone in that group. And I believe that statement enabled the rest of the family to own exactly that the Hebrew was there for them too. And the fact that the leader could share all this, everything except the one brother. So I think that quote was the key.
Interesting.
Good, excellent point. Excellent point. Yes. Very good. Any other comments? Yes, Don.
Just following Helene's comment, I don't know what the exact Hebrew word is for use there. I don't have the Hebrew in front of me for God, but there were a lot of gods around at the time. And the Egyptians, if that was around the time of Amenhotep, were worshiping Ra, the sun god. And so I imagine that Joseph, in his position, was pretty ambidextrous about which words he was using around the court, around Pharaoh. So yeah, it must have been a giveaway to the brothers, depending on whether Joseph used El or Elohim or whatever term. I mean, if he'd used anything besides that, it would have gone right over the heads of the brothers. But there's no clue in there. There's just, except I don't have anybody have the Hebrew there?
Well, at this time, they have been talking about, a few weeks ago, we spoke about El Shaddai.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and there are different ways of interpreting that. We spoke about one at that time from the standpoint of God of the wilderness, okay, and a God of the mountain, going up, and biblically it's used in that fashion. And it is also a God of plenty, nourishment, breasts. Okay. The root word, shad, means breast. And so nourishment, the God of nourishment will provide. Okay. However, it also is used differently in biblical times. And Shaddai, Shaddad, I should say, the root word Shaddad means to plunder, overpower, or make desolate. So Shaddai can also mean that that the famine is also a message from God or God's doing to force the situation that we're reading. Yes, David.
I just wanted to add something from modern scientific experience that might assist here. And that is that about 20 or 30 years ago, Eleanor Helene, who was at one point a colleague of Gene Shoemaker's, suggested that a newly discovered asteroid or small planetary world be named for the Egyptian sun god Ra and for the Hebrew word for peace. And this was to celebrate the Camp David Accords, and the asteroid was approved, and it was named Ra Shalom.
Oh,
I just thought I'd mention that.
interesting.
Very interesting. Thank you. Thank you for that factoid. Yes, Don.
Yeah, just continuing your thread there, Marty. There, even among the Hebrews at that time, there was a whole pantheon of gods. I'm just really interested in exact term because even as far as in Solomon's temple, Ashtart, who was supposed to be the consort of Yahweh, God had a wife who was a fertility god, and I would imagine that at the time of the famine in Egypt, there would have been fertility gods would be in demand. So to me, that's like a key verse. How does that message get from Joseph to his brothers? How does that signal? Or maybe it didn't. I don't know. How did that signal them that there was an insider there?
Well, you're referring to the passage itself, and right now I don't think we know that much about. From the brothers' standpoint, they still haven't realized that Joseph is who he is.
Right.
But Joseph certainly knows who they are.
Right.
Okay. And now it's up to the brothers to get to that point. What does Joseph have to come up with to get them to realize what is going on? And it's going to come out as we read on in the story. One of the things I can't answer your any other way at this point, but I think it's important.
Yeah, I'll let up because there's more than enough for the plot right there. I just got kind of went crashing off through the woods.
Maybe Suzanne has something to say on this.
Okay. Yes. In fact, when we first read that Joseph said he was a God-fearing man, I thought, why didn't his brothers pick up on that? But then when Don made his comment, then I thought about it a little bit more. And although I don't have a Hebrew version in front of me, I'm betting that the word he used was Elohim.
God Almighty.
Elohim with a capital E would mean God, our Heavenly Father.
Mm-hmm.
Elohim can also mean with a little e, the gods, like like Ra or Isis or the whole mess that Egypt had.
I would take a different tack on this. When we think, I wish Ricky were here because she would understand it from the Kabbalistic side. But when we have 72 names for God, it's really 72 names of God. They're different aspects of one God, as opposed to having multiple gods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think we need to keep that in our mind, that they're still believing in one God. And even though different names will be used, and God will tell them about different names too, in other books and like that. And over time, there are more and more ways of expressing what God can do. It isn't necessarily a different God. It's a different aspect of God.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Chris.
No, I agree with you, Marty. There's only one God, and it does have more than 72 attributes or personality traits, if we want to say that. But totally agree with that. Thank you.
I just want yes, Michael, go ahead, and then Suzanne.
Yeah, the number 72 kind of jumped out. I believe that's the same number of virgins that an Islamic terrorist would be receiving once they commit their their acts of murder, and it's an odd that it would be exactly, 72 would be an odd number, And
Yeah.
so, and so I think that number may play a part in also in the Quran or their religion.
I don't know enough to answer that question.
Me neither.
It's
But you
4
are
times
correct.
high.
You are correct about
The
the
72
wives.
virgins, yes.
Yeah. So I know Suzanne has had her hand up. And so Suzanne, why don't you, and Larry, was your hand up too? Okay, so Suzanne and then Larry.
Okay, the reason I gave my interpretation is I'm in the middle of a course right now, and the instructor is a PhD in Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, and Greek languages, and he was the one that explained how Elohim was used back in that day. So, I mean, when we hear Elohim, we think of the Heavenly Father, but they could also interpret it to mean what they called their gods as well.
Possibly.
Well, not possibly. I mean, that's what
Okay. I'm
so-
wrong. Okay. Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for correcting me. Yes, Larry.
Look, a whole bunch of things. 72 is also 4 times high. So it's an important number. The second is, it was mentioned that the interpreter was between Joseph and the brothers, that he listened. They did not know that he was there or understood what they were saying. And the third point I want to make is Joseph setting up a test for them to see if he could really trust them.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
No, that's very, all those are very good points. And thank you, Suzanne, for correcting me.
Well, I wasn't correcting you, Mark.
Well,
I
you
just
added
wanted-
but a better use of everything,
yeah,
but,
I'm not making this up. I mean, I got it from somewhere. So,
as one of the things, does anyone have a mezuzah handy
Not handy, but on the
or
wall.
on the wall of your home,
Yes,
or doorway or gate or
Yes.
something?
yes.
Sometimes the mezuzah will have a shin on it.
Yeah, ours does. That has a shin.
And what does that represent?
Shit.
The shin.
Shaddai, I believe.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. Good for you.
Good one. And so why would we want to invoke one of the aspects of God to protect our home and all the people who live within the home, to help provide nourishment, protection? One of the aspects of God. Yes, David.
Well, I believe that to answer your question, your good question, Marty, is that the shin, I think, represents the Shema, which
It
is
also
really
does,
are definitely a central prayer in Judaism. It is also the benediction that comes at the end of every service on Shabbat, where the rabbi's hands form the letter shin as he's blessing the
Yes.
congregation. That is so important and so central. And I believe that's why the shin is also on the mezuzah.
That is the rest of the tale I was going to tell. But that is true. So it all ties together with this. Yes, Larry.
In the Via Haftor, isn't it also the doorposts
Yes.
Yes.
of our house?
Yes. That's all part of the Shema. The Shema leads into the V'ahavta prayer. That is correct.
And
Yes,
the Shema actually
Suzanne.
commands us to do that.
Marty, I missed, I could not make out, what did you say, Shema?
Shema.
Shema?
Here, listen. Okay. Shema Yisrael. Hear, O Israel. H-E-A-R.
So,
That's right.
well, now I'm
And that prayer is
It's central, yeah.
it's very, as Larry pointed out, it is very, and David, these are very essential, and they're the central prayers of the service, of a Sabbath service.
Mhm.
So
okay. So the thing on the mezuzah is, what did you call that?
the letter Shin,
Shin.
it represents Shaddai.
Shaddai.
It represents the Shema.
Okay.
And it also, yeah, okay. I'm going to let David. There's one other thing. That's what David was
Well, this
talking
is the blessing, at least, that the
Yes,
rabbi had done this. You weren't really supposed to look at that, and the rabbi was doing it.
Right.
Leonard Nimoy did,
Yeah.
and that has become so famous in Star Trek as the Vulcan salute. But it is a Jewish religious symbol.
That?
Yes.
That
Yes.
hand, and it is
Okay.
the symbol that is commanded in the Shema.
It's
Which
the Levitical blessing, actually, is what it is.
Yeah.
yes, yes.
And you do it much better than I do.
Very good, everyone. Very good.
Okay. Thank you.
Joanne.
Okay, I've been looking up the word, what I would say is Simon, S-I-M-E-O-N. But when I go to Wikipedia, it's S-H-I-M-O-N, shaman. Is that the word you're saying to me?
No.
No.
Okay.
The letter Shin, there's a dot. And the pronunciation will be on one side of it or a not. And it changes from a sh sound to a th sound.
Wow. Okay.
So you have to be watching the letters very carefully as they're written down.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Michael.
I'm sitting here thinking how to frame this question, and it's a loaded question.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. The purpose of the mezuzah on the door, on the gates, in your home, is to provide protection. God will protect you. And does that negate keeping a firearm in your house, in your home, for self-protection? How does one balance that?
I do not know.
I don't understand.
I understand what you mean. That are you trying to say, my interpretation of what you said was that God would do all the protecting, and I wouldn't need a gun. Is that what you're saying? Versus I need a gun because I can't count on everything being the way I would like. Is that
It's all encompassing what you said. It's all encompassing.
okay? I can't answer your question. Maybe Gail can. I know it takes us on a tangent.
I think you're going down the wrong road here, Marty. The reason for the mezuzah is because we're commanded to post it on the house. And I don't know where it comes in that it's a matter of protection. We are just commanded to post that on our doors.
But what is okay?
So I was taught in conversion class.
Oh, no. You're
it's
very
correct.
correct.
Yeah.
But the mezuzah, there's much more to the mezuzah.
Right.
There's a representation of the blood on the doorways, which we'll get to in reading of the Exodus.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the,
Okay,
but the real reason that we put them up, I mean, if anybody asks you,
Yes,
why do you
we
have
are.
mezuzah on your door? It says, because I'm commanded to have it.
It's
That's it.
there. It's
You
in
don't
for
go
your
down
house
the other
of
road.
prayer.
Yeah.
Yes. Just like using tefillin
Right,
and the phylactery.
right.
It's all in that V'yatavta prayer.
Right. But what I'm trying to say is I can remember a couple of the rabbis in my conversion class said, don't get into the magic.
No, no.
We're not.
Don't
We're
go
not.
into the
But
magic.
there's a lot of symbolism in it as
Symbolism, yes, but not, you shouldn't consider it a shield. It's just, you're just commanded to do it and don't question it.
that is a better answer to what Michael said.
Yes.
Yes.
Very good answer.
Very good answer. The other
So-
thing is that in it is not stated, but strongly suggested and implied you'd better know a lot about your Torah and what's in it and the messages that are hidden within it. And that is one of the reasons why that prayer is in conjunction with the reading of the Torah. Yes.
Dan?
Larry.
Okay, two things. First of all, it's an ongoing tension, as far as Michael said. God will protect us, or we should make our own arrangements. And there's a controversy today. People who do not take the vaccine to say, well, it's God's will, or God will protect me. I don't need a vaccine. But it brings to mind the story of there was a big flood, and someone goes onto their roof and said God promised him God will come and help him. And the rowboat comes by and asks him to come to go on the boat. I'll save you. And said, no, God will save me. And then later on, a helicopter comes, can put down a ladder. No, God will help me. Well, the person dies, goes up to heaven and said, God, well, I thought you were going to save me. And God says, well, who do you think sent the boat and the helicopter?
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
I think they'll
so it's in the interpretation. David, was your hand up for a while?
Yes, it was, but I was just going to agree with Larry, is that it is possible that when you put the mezuzah up, and it could be protection, because as Larry so wisely said, God is protecting us, but He's also allowing us to bring a weapon. I mean, I wouldn't use a gun in my home, but I would have a broom or something that I could throw at people, or a boiling water or something to throw at people. And I think that's all in all a part of it.
Just to
Sue wants to
Susan,
talk. Sue wants to talk.
Okay.
Susan.
Okay, so
Okay,
Mike
thank
gives
you.
up the floor.
Now, I think Gail's initial comment
That's right.
on the
Spot on.
mezuzah is spot on, but philosophically, I think there's a lot more to the purpose of the mezuzah, which is that you have willingly invited the Spirit of God and the tenets that you have accepted into your heart. And it's a reminder when you exit your home or enter your home that you have taken this spirit and have lived it. That's the purpose of the mezuzah, really. Now, to Michael's comment, I think the idea of protection, he's just got a slightly different angle to the word protection. Literally, it means if you follow these tenets, if you take this to heart, ultimately, you will be protected, not necessarily in a physical sense, in a spiritual sense. And that's where the two of you sort of diverge in your definition of protection. And the mezuzah is just simply a reminder to you that you have committed yourself to this spiritual life. That's all. That's all.
So I wanted to just mention that, and I probably misused the word, but I would change that to self-defense, to be able to defend myself if and when it ever happened. That's what the firearm would be about. This self-defense. I respect very, very much David's about the boiling water and the broom and everything, but it's a nice thought. It's very, very well felt, heartfelt. But the fact of the matter is, if someone comes in with a gun to your home, and hopefully it's not going to happen, but you can't defend yourself with a broom and that type of thing. But and also one other point to Gail, which I appreciate. I think she said that when she was studying, the rabbis told her, you don't question, you accept what they said and you don't question.
No,
She didn't say that.
no, she didn't.
No, not at all. You should
Well,
have been in the class.
Well, you don't
No.
question.
No, you question the rabbi. Of course you do. This isn't
Okay.
Christianity. This is Judaism. It's a
Right.
different thing.
Right. Marcia had her hand.
Marcia, yes, thank you.
You're muted.
Still muted.
You're still muted.
Okay, my remark was that Sue's hand was up because maybe you could see me, but you couldn't see her behind you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, any comments about verse 25? Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, return each one's money to his sack, and give them provisions for the journey. Any comment about that?
Excuse me.
He could have kept the money and just sold the grain. Suzanne.
I think that was a very loving thing for Joseph to do, to give them their money back. I'm guessing, I know it doesn't say, but he probably covered their tab.
Yeah, well, that's the provisions they provide. He provides for them. Yes. Don.
Well, he gave them that gift, but it came out of the Pharaoh's treasury, so it wasn't truly a gift from Joseph. It's a bit of nepotism there.
Well, yes.
It didn't cost him anything at all. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Is this also supposed to be a message about how to put things into perspective, to balance events? Sometimes you have to do something that may not be exactly the right thing, but in the end will turn out to be the right thing.
She's this one.
Yes, Larry.
Okay, I'm referring you to Genesis 37:28. Midianite men, merchants passed by. They hauled up Joseph from the pit and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. They brought Joseph to Egypt. So silver is significant here.
Yes. Yes, I was going to say, to mention that I must have missed how much was given to each of the brothers. I may have misread that, but I agree. Yes, and the relationship to the captivity. But yes, it would be very interesting to for that to be done. As another clue to them. I remember what happened. Yes, David. Oh, it's Wendy.
Can't hear you.
I can't, I think it's muted.
Wait,
Vivian.
wait. Now, can you hear me?
Ah,
Yes,
perfect.
Now,
Perfect. Okay, last week we talked about this, and it sounds like a very loving thing to do for a brother to give back the money to his brothers, but they didn't know he was putting it in their sack. So
Right.
the question was really, how are they going to react to seeing that money? Will they be thinking, oh, wow, this is a great person, and they go, this looks like our past brother, or will they say, oh no, they're going to think we stole this?
And that is what,
that's possible.
and that is very possible. That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very good way of looking at it. Thank you. Yes, Susan.
To Don's point, you mentioned that when Joseph gives money back to the brothers, it's not his money. Wasn't he salaried by the Pharaoh?
Well, I don't know where the money came from. Certainly the grain belonged to the Pharaoh. But I have no idea.
I think
asking him.
I think that there is a passage in which it's mentioned that he is salaried by the Pharaoh in his position. I don't know that it goes into specifics about how much, but it's kind of interesting how he manipulates things. He's still a manipulator of sorts.
Mm-hmm.
So if we could read on, would someone else care to read? Gail, do you have your
What verse are we on?
27?
27. Okay. Okay. Then one of them opened his pack. Is that where we are?
Yeah.
Then one of them opened his pack to give provender to his donkey at the encampment. And he saw his silver, and look, it was in the mouth of his bag. And he said to his brothers, my silver has been put back, and look, it's actually in my bag. And they were dumbfounded and trembled, each before his brother, saying, what is this that God has done to us? That's interesting.
Let's stop it. That's what Wendy was getting after. Yeah. Any other comments about this? Yes, Joanne.
I think someone mentioned 20 pieces of silver. I don't have that anyplace. It just says money, their money had been returned. I don't see, or silver had been returned, but I don't see the amount anyplace.
Okay, at this point, yes.
Oh, okay. Later it comes. Okay, all right.
So, and because there's going to be more discussion about this, and we'll find out if it's mentioned or not. If this turns out to be midrash, or if it is actually stated. Okay. So it'll be our test.
Okay, I have another question. My Jewish friend has given me something that I have in my home. And so I'd like to know what the symbol is. What does it look like that you have on your post or on your home for protection? Does anyone have it close by that I could just see it? I'm curious.
They're all
The
different.
mezuzah she's talking about, I think.
Yeah.
Anybody can answer that. What the mezuzahs that you have on your home is sometimes they're narrow and they're in the shape of a scroll, Torah scroll. Sometimes, sometimes they're just a long rectangle.
Okay.
But there are some that are very artistic, and they may include other symbols in the manufacturing of the mezuzah. But what makes a mezuzah a spiritual mezuzah is having the scroll, which is the Via Havsha prayer, inside the scroll.
All right. Yeah.
They're very small. They are, all of them are very, very small. No more than maybe 2-3 inches long.
Yeah.
Just 1 second.
We'll show you one if you can hold on for a second.
Okay.
Marty's going to get one because we have a collection of them. I was going to tell you just parenthetically that when we were in New York, we went through the Jewish Museum, which is exquisite. And on one of the floors, they had mezuzahs that were made out of remnants of the Warsaw Ghetto.
Mm.
I personally would not buy one simply because I do not want a memory of the Warsaw Ghetto in my home. It's just too somber, and I just could not live with that. But I thought it was an amazing idea to resurrect something that had caved in on itself and was destroyed, to give it new life somewhere else. It's just that I anything that close to the Holocaust would remind me of it constantly, and I just do not want that. There are people who may prosper from that reminder, but I just couldn't handle that. But there are all different kinds of art forms on mezuzahs, and they're quite spectacular. Some are made from the old temple wall. They're very rare to come by, the pieces that you have. I saw recently, you know, the domes that were donated to Israel to protect them against rockets. They are now making mezuzahs out of parts of domes. Isn't that interesting?
The Iron Dome.
Yes, the
Fascinating.
Iron Dome. Okay, Marty has something to show you.
Okay,
Oh, let's see.
this is one, and the white area in the middle is the rolled up scroll. Okay,
And what's the letter on it?
and if you look closely, let me get it up here. I don't know if it shows up as well, but that's a shin over here.
Tell her what it stands for, what it means.
Well,
The shin.
Shalom, Shaddai. This is what we were discussing before.
Okay.
And Shema.
And the
Shema.
Shema. Here's another one.
Ah,
That they can see. You see
Yeah.
the different symbols on it?
I do. It's beautiful.
Now I've got one. This is on my front door, or the post of my front door.
Oh,
Let's
yes.
see.
I took a picture of it.
Oh, good.
See if it shows. Can you see it?
Oh, it does. Very pretty. Oh, that's beautiful.
It's all silver. Now there's no Shaddai on it. You know, I mean, there's no S. So
Yeah, some of them do not.
Some of them don't, and Larry had.
Here's one that does not. I don't know if this
That's
shows
too-
up.
it's
Okay. Oh, there I can see. Yeah.
Wow, beautiful.
These are gorgeous. What I have is hanging at home. So I'm not sure. It's been almost a year and a half, so I'm not quite sure what they look like. But
Sure. Then they
Yeah.
come, this is a city in part Jerusalem. The city is depicted there.
Yes.
yeah,
Larry had his hand up.
Yes, Larry.
Can you also say it's a way of identifying yourself as, I can't shut the phone, as Jewish, and some people as, okay, I'm gonna move into another room. As it could be used as jewelry. I can't get it. I'm gonna go outside. But also other ways of identifying. People use the Star of David. And people identify as a piece of jewelry. And I wonder, could you say it's equivalent of people who wear a cross or a crucifix?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
yes.
it's similar.
There's also one, it's sort of like this,
Uh-huh.
a Hamza, which is,
Yes.
which
I
is like,
recognize that. Okay.
okay, I'm going to let Sue describe that. She's more familiar with the interpretation of
Well,
it.
no, the only thing I know about the Hamza is it's supposed to ward off evil spirits. It's a little more otherworldly to me than these symbols. But it's not, if I understand correctly, it's not unique to Hebrews or Judaism. I think it goes way back.
It's
a
also
symbol.
used in Islam.
Yeah, it's also used in Islam. That's correct. And Don had his hand.
Yes, okay. I think
Good,
David,
Larry, thank you for the tour of your home. We love that.
I had to get away from the ring. So.
It's good.
I
Okay,
think this is
Don?
also used by the Muslims.
Just,
that-
my friend Deborah, who heads up the Seattle Jewish Chorale, is also a weaver, and she makes mezuzah cylinders with the scrolls inside. So if you go out to the craft website, Etsy, I don't know if any of you are familiar with that.
Yes.
I've seen it.
There are hundreds of different kinds of mezuzahs, everything
Yes.
fine art to prosaic. It's fascinating, but as a plug for Deborah, if you want one that's woven, you'll find it
Thank
there.
you for the information. Yes, okay. I don't, Marsha and then Michael.
Oh, I have 3 of them in my home and I just checked them out. Nothing has the letter on it, but they're contemporary Israeli.
Yeah.
And one has glass on it and one is from the Israeli stones that was made. And the other one is just another beautiful piece of art. So mezuzahs have taken many forms. We can't count them all, but they all, I hope, have marks of fingers on them.
Yes.
True.
Yes.
True. Yes, Michael.
Yeah, I believe the official symbol of Judaism would be the menorah. That's what
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
That is true. Of Israel, actually. Of Israel.
Right.
That's the six candle one, not the 8 one, not the Hanukkah one.
Right.
And this is the one that would have the menorah.
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now I understand you just said menorah, and I wasn't hearing that word before. Thank you.
Okay. So I know we digressed a lot,
digression.
but I think it was worthwhile to see how all of this is tying into this story. I wish either Mark were here or Ricky, because they know a lot about the Kabbalah and the position. I think I mentioned the position of Joseph in the scheme of different, what we call sephirot, or aspects of God, if you will. They represent bowls of which contain a different aspect of God, if you will. And I won't go into any other details about that, but each one of them is connected ultimately through Joseph down to the rest of us on the earth. And so it's like Joseph is our conduit, if you will, that because he's representing things in this story that are very important to get us to the lowest level of understanding all of the other concepts, including love, justice, and all of these things. So all of these concepts are coming together in his story, in this part of the story.
Wow.
Okay, that's how the Kabbalistic interpretation would be. Yes, first Joanne and then Michael.
I was reading about the horrible disaster that happened in Israel this week, with all the many 45 people killed, etc. But if I understood what I was reading, they at the kind of an aspect of why they're there is the Kabbalah, and some of those people, depending on which group, trace it back to Adam and Eve. And so Joseph being the conduit, maybe from the ancestors on to us, is what I'm thinking you're saying right now.
That group was primarily comprised of members of the Chabad. Okay, and that's where the Chabads as an acronym for some of the names of what I mentioned before as Sephiroth, or the uppermost vessels that get you closest to understanding God.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so but that's why that came out in discussion.
Okay. My friend, Gila, son is a rabbi, and I wrote them instantly because he is Hasidic, and I thought he might be in that group, and it was very
Yeah.
heartening for me this week. Part of me was there.
Is he okay?
Is he safe?
He is safe.
Good.
They've all had COVID, and I think he has 10 children.
Oh,
Everybody's had COVID, but
Yeah, that's a separate issue.
that's a whole separate issue. But being there, where this accident occurred was really hard. I was pretty scared.
yeah.
They wrote me instantly.
Good.
Wow. Yeah, it's very tragic. Thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah.
So, any other comments before we get back? Yes, Michael.
The Kabbalah, there's some controversy. As a matter of fact, quite a bit of controversy surrounding the Kabbalah because it's mysticism, and a lot of rabbis consider it magic and stay away from it. And that's the controversy that surrounds Kabbalah.
In some people's minds, yes, because there is a branch of that practices astrology. And it's as we read in the Torah itself, there are commentaries that we have as we finish this story. We can come back to the topic of divination, because that was the word given to dream interpretation. Oh, and the ephod, and the birth, and the stones on the shield that the priest wore. There are 12 stones, each one having a different representation. There are different ways that the Kabbalists look at that. That is the mysticism that you talk about, but it's another interpretation of things. It is not necessarily, I think there's something to be learned from all branches of Judaism, just like I think there's something to be learned about all branches of Christianity. Many of the divisions in Christianity are over a simple interpretation, and the same thing in Judaism. And so it in my mind, I find it more edifying to know that so many different ideas have been put forth in history. Will we ever know what is really correct? No, we will have to believe a certain way. And each one of us, because of our upbringing, because of what we have read, things like that, we will approach every issue with, I'm going to call, you've heard me say this, with the blinders of our own education, our own upbringing, and things like that. But we have to recognize, take one of the blinders off, and you say, oh, look at all those other people out there with their ideas. Take the other blinder off. There are many other people with ideas from that side. They're all trying to figure out what this whole thing is about. Us, what we are about, what I am about, what you are about. And that's what I think is that's me. That's what edifies me. Trying to understand where people come from. And that's all. You go ahead, Michael. Your hand has been up.
Yeah, well, what you were just saying is a very good example of why, just focusing on the Torah for a moment, on the Torah is read. It continues, and on Yom Kippur, it's well, we never come to the end of the Torah. When we come to the final part, it's continued to the beginning, and it's read over and over again for weeks, months, years, and decades and centuries. It will never end, because the wording, the way it's worded, we are all the time receiving different messages,
right,
from the Torah, and so it was meant to be that way. That I can see. I learn from attending this class every Saturday morning, but I just don't know it. I can't retain a lot of information because my mind is not is weakening, unfortunately. So I'm doing the best that I can, but I get so much from everybody's information, opinion, and what people have to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well stated. David. Oh, it's Wendy.
Yeah, with all,
no, it isn't Wendy.
It's me. With all due respect, Michael, I don't think your mind's weakening at all. I really enjoy your comments.
Yes.
This is way off the subject, but I also want to compliment Sue and Marty for their outfits right now. We have a cowgirl, and I love your T-shirt. I'm a little quirky, which is definitely from the physics particle called the quark. And there's a very famous Canadian program on science called Quirks and Quarks. And that talks about science. And in a way, when we talk about the Torah today and other days, we're also talking about science, because the Torah is supposedly inclusive of that. And so I think that we are doing that in a way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes, Don.
Coming back to the Torah, I have my own private little Torah study every morning from 5:30 to 6:30. That's my ritual. Have a cup of coffee. But this morning I was reading in Deuteronomy, and we were talking a minute ago about predicting future, and the tendency for people is we really want to know what's going to come next, what's in our future, how to control it, how to control nature, how to control other people. It's just in our blood. But Deuteronomy is very specific about not listening to necromancy or dream interpreters, or
that is true,
or any kind of fortune tellers, witches, wizards. It's very specific, and any shall be caught and stoned to death. I mean, there's no wiggle room there. So I know, Joseph was kind of walking the edge there, but when you read Deuteronomy, it is very clear, that
it's very clear. For what reason, Don?
It specifically states that the only information we shall get about the future is directly from God.
Correct. And what is the purpose of the ephod and the Urim and Thummim?
Well, the ephod, right? It was like a dozen crystals, and the Urim and Thummim. Nobody really knows what that is. I have my own.
Well, what is your interpretation?
We don't have enough time, but
okay.
I'm going to cover that, and I'm going to do a presentation later this month.
Oh, okay.
And I will cover that.
Okay, because were felt to be tools that the priest would use,
Correct.
along with the ephod, to be able to get and I'm going to use my own words here, message from God. That people would approach the priest with a problem, and then the priest would be able to interpret. That is a form of divination.
It is, but God gave the exact specification for that.
Correct. And so this is how you connect with God, not other things. Because other ways of divining, the use of runes, the use, even if the short straw, if you will, it's a way of divining who's got the short straw. That's the one who's going to either be listened to or denied. And the same thing with all these things are methods of chance. God doesn't deal with chance.
No, I understand that, Marty, and it's very specific in construction of the ark and the tabernacle, but that comes just from God as the source. There's no other people with their interpretations. And even Aaron's sons got zapped when they try to.
Right.
You got it.
To change the incense.
That's right.
To change the incense.
That's right. There is a prescription to be followed.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Joanne, and then Michael.
I taught yoga and certified yoga teacher for over 10 years. And it usually, in other words, just to get into the body, etc., one used an OM. And I think I hear you saying OM, and I don't know how you're spelling it. But in my studies, I have discovered that when astronauts go out and others go out into the universe, or when a satellite listens, the sound they hear is that Amen or Om, and I suspect, but it's just, people have been talking about the telescopes, etc. today, but as you're talking, I'm hearing this Om. Yes, Sue.
Thank you.
Beautifully put. I agree with
that. It is.
Yes.
I hadn't heard that before, but it is interesting. Yeah. Michael.
I don't want to digress, but at the end of the session this morning, I would like to talk to David for a moment at the end of this. So David, don't sign off right away. Just give me a minute to talk to you at the end. If you let me do that, Marty.
Absolutely. I won't go.
Whoever is in control. Okay, Susan.
To Joanne's point, which I appreciated for a variety of reasons, you very curiously sort of wrap up the whole discussion of religious objects and in Judaism at its inception. I think part of the reason we did not have a lot of objects that we considered religious objects, we didn't have a lot compared to neighboring cultures. The reason was to remove obstructions from your prayer and your communion with God. And I think in a way, philosophically, that still holds. The only difference today is we have emulated other practices of religion to make it more glamorous and appealing, because in a sense, we're competing with the tangible objects of religion in order to include more people in our fold. I think originally we never were into a lot of objects and art. It came later precisely because they were considered an interference with your direct prayer to God. That's what I want to say. And your comment when you think about the astronauts, they go through sensory deprivation before they ever go on a mission. Why? Because we are so used to clutter of the mind on Earth, and they have to declutter to really sensitize themselves to what they're about to experience in a totally different realm. So your comment is very apropos about the yoga.
I'm going to let, I was going to do a footnote, but I'm going to let Larry have.
Do you footnote? I'll hold my thoughts.
No, go ahead.
No,
Okay, a couple of things. As far as visualization, people who have near-death experiences see a light, and then depending upon their religious background, they interpret what comes next.
That is very true.
And that's the whole fascinating thing. Then Sue's comment about art and religion. I think it goes back to idol worship,
yes,
where we are not encouraged in any way. Whereas if you go to a museum, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, you see so many Madonnas and a whole flowering of art in those earlier times that we do not have.
right.
A couple of comments. You stimulated another thought.
Good. What it's all about.
Well, we do not worship any of these symbols. These symbols are there to remind us of God rather than to worship the symbols and what they represent. We can talk about the representation and like that, but but they are not worshipped. We worship God, which is a little different from other religions too. The other thing is, one of my takes on Judaism is that God, our concept of God and our communication with God is not just as a community representation, that it's sort of within our own mind. It's our own spirituality. It's like a two-way street between God and us, man. And we can do our prayers within our mind. God is a concept in Judaism. It's not a tangible. God is not a tangible object, and so it. I think that it's important to be able to do this. Now, maybe that was forced on us. Maybe that had to be forced on us to say, well, we can't work. We're not being allowed to worship our God the way we want to, and we have to do it within us. I don't know, but I do know that as long as I know that I can communicate with God internally, God is with me all the time, and I think other religions may have a view of that too, that God is within, and it's spiritual. It's not physical. It's all spiritual, and so I wanted to just address that aspect, to throw in that little footnote. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, and I'm sure this has occurred to everybody anyway, but it sort of ties in with what Marty just expressed, that earlier man had to have something, some object to use as a conduit to the God he believed would control something of nature or himself. Early man needed that. Our religion abstracted from that. And there's the difference. The abstraction came because the responsibility lay within man himself to have a direct line to God and God to him. We abstracted the fact that we didn't need a tangible object as a conduit. And indeed, when you look at Judaism, I guess more recently, but then in Moses' time too, God and our ability to worship him was portable. It was not mandatory to go into a particular place to worship, although they did practice that as well. They could pray to God on a mountaintop. They could pray to God in a park. They could pray to God from their home. That was not the case in neighboring cultures of earlier times. And that distinguishes our religion, I think, markedly from other earlier religions.
Okay, yes, Michael.
Yeah, thank you very much, Susan. As far as I understand, it is preferable to gather as a community.
Yes.
In one location. If you're alone, it's certainly a beautiful thing to be able to pray on a mountaintop, as you say, if there is no other circumstances, or even if there are other circumstances, there is nothing wrong with that. And it's very nice. But as far as I understand, it's preferable to gather as a community.
You're right.
Yes.
You're right, but if you're alone in
Right.
in another
Yes.
location
Yes.
Yeah,
where there is no other Jewish person around, you still have that ability.
Yes.
I do that, Marty and Sue, I do that all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not in the synagogue all the time.
That's right.
And so, but I'm praying all the time.
But yes, that is encouraged in Judaism as well.
That is encouraged.
Yes.
Yes.
You are very correct. Yes, Joanne.
For myself, when I had three small children, one just out of diapers and the other two in diapers that were really close together, I didn't end up going to church. Gary watched the children, and I went out and went down to the river and sat there and talked to God, because
Yeah.
going into my church just overwhelmed me with people, and it was not calming for me.
Yeah, that's why I mentioned it is not unique to
Yeah.
Judaism, but I think it's something that has been passed down, that we didn't need an idol. Suppose you lost the idol, what would you do?
Yeah.
You would purchase a new one
Or carve another one.
or carve a new one.
Yeah.
Okay. But the but an amulet is something that Jewish people wear. I'm Jewish. Okay, it's not something that I'm going to wear because it shows my level of spirituality. It is not something that is that connects me with anything. Okay, it's an amulet. It's a piece of jewelry, and it just says I'm Jewish, as opposed to somebody wearing a cross. But I know some people. I've met people in my past who will actually take their cross and they will pray to the cross on that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I guess I'm assuming there may be someone who's Jewish that does the same thing, but it isn't necessary.
Well, it's up to the person.
It's up to the individual.
Yeah. I would say it's more a case of not praying to the cross, it's praying through the cross. I think it's a different
Good point.
Way of looking at it. And Michael, to your comment about community, yes, indisputably, the community has tremendous value in Judaism. I think largely to underscore prayers, especially at the time of special blessing or a time of mourning. There is something therapeutic about a community joining you in your moment of grief or joy. So, of course, you are correct about the value of community.
Any other comments, or would you like to get back to another verse in Torah? We have 5 minutes.
Larry.
Okay, I'll comment. When you refer to the cross, do you distinguish between a cross and a crucifix?
Are you asking me?
Well, no, Marty and Susan. were discussing about praying to or through.
Different.
Yeah,
There is a difference.
because I think it's better for a Christian to answer that
Yeah.
because
it's
they practice this
Okay, please,
as
please
opposed to me.
answer, Joanne. Oh, Brother Ruth back. Thank you. Pastor
I must have got back just in time.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
we're waiting.
Go ahead, answer.
So Sue pointed out that the crucifix, okay, or the cross,
The cross.
is something not to be necessarily prayed to, but prayed through.
For some people.
In other words, it's a conduit, as opposed to the object itself.
I would say that you'd have to have someone who's Catholic decide how that is. That's not what I do. I don't do that. I don't have any things. I mean, I may wear a cross, but I don't pray to it or through it at all. That's not something I do. So you'd have to talk to someone who has that kind of tradition, which would be Catholic or possibly Russian Orthodox or something like that. But we don't have any icons in the evangelical world at all. It's just so
right.
Not to or through. In that case, you'd have to talk to somebody who has that tradition.
Thank you for that. Very important. Yes, Joanne, you're going to have the final say.
Thank you. I may not be like most Catholics, etc., but when I have a cross, if I'm praying, it's to God, and this is kind of a reminder of putting my mind into a silence and talking. There's also, we have rosaries, and for me, the rosary, especially Mary, is I think of her life and what she did, and the fact that she had to go into Egypt. She was the people at the border right now. And so I don't really pray to the rosary. I say the rosary, but I like Sue's word, through. In other words, I'm actually praying to God, and it helps me also. The rosary reminds me of I'm a woman, and how as I do this, how will it help me be a better woman or a better mother or even a better Torah scholar? So thank you.
Good point. Thank you so much for clarifying that.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I think we can stop at this point and somebody make a mark in their book or something, because I will probably forget the exact location.
Where did we end up?
Good question. 1 second.
Well, I'm going to mark my book.
We'll mark ours too.
Okay. I think it would be best
27?
27 to start there next time.
27? Okay.
27.
Yes, we'll start with verse 27, and I think that's a good place. There'll be a little repetition, but also it'll move us into the next session. I know Ruth Ann, Michael wants to speak with David for a second.
Yeah, okay, but I want to say something real quick. I was listening kind of. I was in the trailer. I mean, we had to get work done on the trailer. So while I have it parked in front of the house, I did some work. We have 24 days till we leave. I can't wait. Yeah, so I'm really getting excited. But I do want to point out for Dawn, his presentation is on the 19th. So everybody, please mark down the 19th at 1 o'clock. Dawn, I'm trying to push it as much as I can, give it as much publicity as I can.
I wouldn't push it that hard, Ruth Ann.
Oh, well, at least this group especially will probably be very interested in it.
No,
So I will make sure that the Zoom invitation goes out to Torah Studies, but I just want to, make sure that everybody marks it on their calendar, the 19th at 1 o'clock.
I could easily be excommunicated after that one.
What is the subject that you're covering, Don?
I'm sorry?
What is the theme of your presentation?
It's the relationship between the Torah and solar eruptions that occurred around the time of Bereshit, and then again afterwards around the time of Solomon. So it's a mix of Torah and science.
Dawn, we are the perfect audience for that because we are such a mishmash of stuff. Somebody asked me the other day, I think it was somebody from the Federation, how I would define Beth Sholem Temple Center. And we're beyond definition. We do. I don't have a definition for us because we're a group of free thinkers. And I mean, this Torah study class of itself shows what kind of free thinkers we are. So, you know, if you needed to present it to anybody, we are the right group for that. Definitely.
I just want to underscore one thing. There is a difference between free thinkers and flight of ideas. For those in psychology, they would understand.
You don't need tickets for this, it's free.
Okay. Also, I want to invite anybody who wants to come for services. You know, as long as you still wear a mask. And we're still social distance, but we are trying to reopen. And now that I finally found out what the rabbi's problem was, it's a very easy one to solve. Just if he's on the bema and doesn't have his mask on, don't approach him. That's all.
That's all. That's it.
That's all. That was the problem. People were approaching him without giving him time to put on his mask. And this was before he had COVID, and it made him very uncomfortable. So the easiest way to do it was to limit the number of people. But now that we know what the problem is, and he was supposed to have gotten his first shot yesterday. I hope he did.
He said he was going to.
Yeah.
Do you have a maximum number that can attend the live service?
We have room for a good 20. We can move the chairs around to social distance.
Okay.
Right now I have the chairs mostly in groups of 3. Thinking for a couple and a place to put stuff in between, but it's not like we have coats right now or sweaters or anything that you know, you really need that third chair. So we can move things around. It's still social distance. That's not a problem. And the CDC says we don't have to sterilize you know, chairs and stuff anymore. Plus, you know, it's a week between uses. So what's that?
This is Wendy's presentation of her recent artwork.
Oh, it's pretty.
Very nice.
Like I said,
I can't listen unless I'm doing something that I consider mindless. So that was what I did so I could listen better.
Well, if I had known, you could have come and helped me clean the trailer.
Oh, yes.
I thought
that's what I did. But again, to continue, we have Shavuot on the 16th. And then on the 18th, we're going to have a discussion on the 10 Commandments. So
that should be a lot of
That would
fun.
be interesting.
So those are my announcements. And Michael, I just want to ask, what you have to say to David is nothing personal, I hope. Because if it's personal, just trade phone numbers and give him a call, please. Because I have no problem with your talking, but I will be hearing.
Yeah.
You can mute, but mute doesn't turn off the sound.
Okay.
I didn't get that. What are you talking about?
You said you wanted to talk to David?
Yes.
Is it anything personal?
Well, there may be my phone number.
Okay, well, that exchange phone numbers and then I can get off, because that's the problem. I don't want to be on if you two are having a private conversation.
I don't see the, okay, well, this.
Because you can't use this for a private conversation after the meeting ends.
Yeah.
He has to sign everyone off. That's the way Zoom works.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with Ruth Ann. It's the
The,
system.
the system.
So
When I,
exchange.
Okay, Michael, let me give you my phone number, then you can call me.
Just
It's
a minute.
520.
Just a minute. 1 minute, please. Thank you. Hold
I'm going to
on.
give out my phone number now.
Okay, 520
762
762
5685.
5685. 762-5685.
Yeah, you got it.
yeah.
I'll
Oh, and
call
don't
you.
forget to get
Okay,
into the
thanks.
practice of doing the area code. You need the area code now.
Yes,
We are now to 10
We're into
digits.
10 digits.
10 digits.
yes.
Joanne.
Okay, Joanne.
Okay, a few weeks ago, not sure when, I said that our priest in Dayton had been talking inappropriately to young girls or young boys, not sure, on Zoom. Well, he's now been sent packing, but in the minutes from the church that just came to me, they made the comment of he was a misbehaving priest. And I like the word misbehaving, so just pass that along.
That was a very kind way of putting it. That's right.
Yes.
Sorry about all of that.
I agree.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I have to go. If anyone needs further discussion, I'm going to let Ruth Ann conduct it, unless
Okay.
it pertains to Torah study.
Okay, well, see you next week, Mike,
Oh,
Have
Marty.
a good week, everybody.
take care.
Healthy
Bye-bye.
week.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have a thunderstorm.
Oh, nothing like that here. Okay.
I don't have a basement.
Be safe. Okay. Bye,
Thank you.
Grace.